Hi, this is Shakira.
And this is Lia,
We're cooking up a great conversation.
starting with a cup of insights,
Add a tablespoon of fun.
a slice of drama,
Drama. A pinch of salt.
para may konting alat, and lots of pepe.
Siyempre, may anghang.
Welcome to Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Happy Pride! Welcome back to Salt and Pepe Podcast. I am Shakira Season.
Happy Pride, everyone! Yes, our second episode during the Pride Month. I'm Lia. Welcome back. Hello, Kia.
Hi! Can you believe we're now on episode 11? Almost done na yung season.
Oo nga,
Right?
no? But it's been such a nice ride. I mean, it's so fun. Dami ko rin natutunan about myself and about other things. And most especially about you.
Yeah, it's been
talaga.
such a nice journey, actually. Exceeded my expectations. So,
That's nice.
it's our 11th episode. So, one more episode in this season. And hopefully, we are planning on being back. Just a short summer break. We already agreed that we will be back. So, it's good that we already made that commitment so
Yes.
that baka mamaya 3 years na naman yung lumipas eh. Tapos, sobrang tanda na natin nun, baka hindi na tayo marunong mag-computer.
Baka, pero baka lahat yun, vocal. You just speak na lang, diba?
Right? Yeah, so thanks also for listening to or watching episode 10. We really enjoyed making that episode. We learned a lot about ourselves and about each other, and I hope you also learned something from that.
Yes, thank you for listening for an episode 10.
Yeah, so as our final episode for Pride, we wanted to talk about how habang tumatanda tayong mga lesbiana, I feel like medyo outdated yung knowledge natin minsan. I think hindi maiiwasan because I guess as we age, sometimes you're just not so in touch with younger people, especially younger queer people, and the terms that they use. So we wanted to talk about best practices, kumbaga, good use of proper terminology, and most especially how to be better members and allies if hindi man kayo queer or gay, lesbian, allies to the community. And we'll talk about how using correct terms and practicing respectful language and behavior is a big part of that, right?
Yes, that's really important. I've learned a lot also coming here and looking into, technology again. Sobrang dami mo pa talagang hindi alam sometimes.
Right.
And especially now, so much changes and very interesting things that comes up. Because dati tayo yung bata, no? So, we knew the language then. But of course, as we get older, we want to make sure na we're using the proper terms so we can stay respectful and inclusive all the time.
Right. And I think in your job, you're very active in diversity, or what they call DEI initiatives. For our listeners, I'm sure that you've heard a lot about DEI initiatives. It's kind of like a buzzword in the past 5 years or so. It means diversity, equity, and inclusion. Tama ba yun? Tama. Okay.
That's correct. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
So basically, in organizations now, if they want to be in the modern world, this is what they do. They have DEI initiatives in companies, especially nonprofits. Also, it's an initiative to be more inclusive, using best practices to be a more diverse and fair workplace that's free of discrimination and hostility. There was a big push for this, siguro nga mga past 5 years, so that medyo inclusive, because also it's not attractive anymore na hindi ka tolerant or inclusive of minorities. I feel like it's a different world now. Back in the day kasi yung mga minorities sila yung mag-a-adjust, right? But
Yes,
now, if you want the best talent, right,
exactly.
you need
Yes.
to make sure that you have a diverse workforce, not only because many of the minorities and queer people are talented, but also because a lot of the talents and the people who make uh, good workers, smart people, also don't want to be in a place that excludes their friends or family members kung hindi man sila part of that minority. So I know you do this every single year at your work. So can you share a bit about your experience with DEI and also modern terms and gender sensitivity?
So exactly right. Kasi I think right because of globalization and of course the companies now are really competitive, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's so much already and it's global. You can get
Mm-hmm.
anybody
Mm-hmm.
from anywhere. So exactly, they wanna of course retain their employees kasi competitive world talaga eh. And of course right now the employees have power
Mm-hmm.
already. Like they can decide, you know what? I don't want to stay in this company. I can go somewhere else,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's
Mm-hmm.
hard really to get good employees and loyal employees, right? They're
Mm-hmm.
really the machine of any company. So yun nga, diversity, equity, and inclusion. Our company, I'm so happy that I'm part of a company
Mm-hmm.
that really has that in their organization. Although, of
Mm-hmm.
course, baby steps pa rin kami. We're just starting and like any company, kami siguro lagi, I think that's the department with the lowest budget because it's starting and of course they cannot see, companies don't see yet how they will gain, right? Profits
Mm-hmm.
regarding that. But of course, if you want to push forward, you really have to um, be aware of
Mm-hmm.
that already. So yun nga,
Mm-hmm.
initiative. So basically, as Kia said, there are minorities in each company. There are different kinds of people now. Right now, you can see
Mm-hmm.
lots of culture, different citizenships, everything. So in our company, I'm really, of course, like in the Philippines, kasi nga of the people I've been with, I've really been part of being part of an advocate group. So in the Philippines, ako naman, LEAP kami, Lesbian Activism Project ang bin dati. So I'm so active. 'Cause I believe kaya kasi 'di ba, swerte nga ako eh, grew up with a good family na that's the only thing I can do is be visible and help in the community. So nung nagsabi na magkakaroon na kami ng Pride Professional Network dun sa
Mm-hmm.
company, oh talagang volunteer. So it's everything is volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
So we call it ERG, Employee Resource Group. So basically, for employees who want to have that safe space,
Mm-hmm.
right? Kasi definitely, it's hard to speak about LGBT if you're not really part of the community,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
If you wanna, but you are an ally, you're welcome to join.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, we have Black Professional Network, we have the Women's
Mm-hmm.
Professional
Mm-hmm.
Network, we
Mm-hmm.
have Asian Professional
Mm-hmm.
Network, which I also joined. So you can see, in our company we have that. So the
Mm-hmm.
DNI program is to make sure that employees have a safe space, that they can speak with people, like-minded people, people like them, people who look like them.
Mhm, mhm,
And eventually, yun nga exciting because we want it to be a BRG, so Business Resource Group. So my company handles employee relations. So now we can be tapped for their products,
mhm,
right? So kami kasi benefits. So basically, there's so much right now. Like if we
mhm,
talk about benefits, yun nga, equity 'di
mhm,
ba? You're gonna give benefits to everyone equally. But when you say equity, for example, for giving benefits to a woman for maybe healthcare or it's different for a transgender woman, right?
yeah,
So
mhm,
when you say equity, it's formed for that specific person, 'di ba? It's like for
mhm,
example, mabibigay kayo ng donation, magbibigay kayo ng damit,
mhm,
sobrang laki tapos yung bibigay mo ng damit, equality naman yon. You're giving
uh-huh,
everyone
eh,
clothes,
but they
pero
might
yung
not
fit,
need
yeah, or they might not need
eh,
it, or it's sobrang laki, or,
or
you
it's
know,
not one size fits all. I think is the
exactly.
emphasis. Like, you can't just okay, it's the same help to everybody, right?
Yes, so that's
So
equality. But when we talk about
Yeah.
equity,
Equity, it's designed for each individual and also each minority group, I think. I think an example of that probably is like, okay, you want to take care of the women, for example, in your company. So we all know how to take care of women, right? Di parang i-design mo yung uh work-life balance and like childcare. You have groups where women can meet so that they can be empowered. They can talk about the challenges facing women, but you can't apply the same thing and the same assistance to trans women, because to ensure the well-being of trans women, you have to make sure that they have the protections that they have at work first, or else they can't talk about. Trans women cannot come together and talk about empowerment and work-life balance and being there for their children if you're not addressing a hostile environment at work, for example, or you're not giving them the proper health care to support their gender identity, right? You have to start with those
exactly.
basics first, right? So this is interesting because I'm not really very involved in company DEI initiatives. I just, hear of them. But one thing that I did experience also, being in finance for maybe about 15 years now. Dati kasi nga, like I mentioned, wapakils kasi ang business world. Parang ikaw yung mag-a-adjust, right? But now,
Exactly.
for example, in finance, there are investors who won't invest in your company unless meron kang DEI initiatives. So that's huge, right? So, okay, maybe the company napipilitan lang silang maging inclusive. Hindi
Yeah,
talaga yun yung nasa puso
meron.
nila. It doesn't matter, because now to attract the top investors or the top talent, you need to whatever, even if nagpre-pretend ka, right? You still
You have
benefit,
to.
the employees still benefit, and some people will take this as these are best practices, and then it becomes ingrained kahit na hindi yun talaga yung first impulse mo to be
True.
that inclusive. So congrats on your work. I
Yeah.
like to keep tabs on the stuff that you're doing at work, kasi parang it's an extension of the stuff that we used to do back home.
Yes, it's an extension, exactly. So, sa'min, when we started, talagang, I would say, be patient. It's gonna flourish. Actually,
Mhm,
I've been so much with some different leaders because I'm
mhm,
more really, I like being a member and just being
mhm,
supportive.
mhm,
So ang dami na namin changes, but you can see, parang gusto ko nga i-document kasi the growth is so different na now. So,
mhm.
yun ang exciting lang na part na yun. So ako, I focus now on the Pride Professional Network. And then yun nga, to add, the Asian Professional Network
Oh,
finally
wow.
got together, and we just finished our really good AAPI month, Asian Heritage Month. So it was a successful one because again, because we know the Asian culture very shy, very quiet. We don't really we didn't have that. So the DNI department is really happy because nga, now I'm also helping with the Asian Professional Network. Ikaw
That's
naman, what
great.
made yeah, exciting eh.
Right?
What made
Yeah.
you interested in this topic, and also why are you trying to be a more updated lesbian?
I guess it's also an admission nga na I'm getting older, right? So it's an admission that we are not the ones who are the most updated. We are not the ones who learn the most or are exposed to uh, the latest studies, developments, all these things. We're not that exposed anymore. We have to make an effort. For me, I think my motivation in this is that I feel like through my various platforms, I spend enough time communicating with younger people that I feel like I owe it to myself to be more updated and kind of keep up with the times. Also, because I guess because I'm a writer, I have, I guess, kind of like an obsession for words. I know how words and language, they're very, very important in making another person feel welcome and that you're approachable, right? So even if I say, oh, tanggap ko kayo lahat, but I'm not using the proper terms, or my language is still offensive, I'm not gonna get through to the person I'm talking to, So um uh it's easy to fall back on parang this kind of arrogance as older lesbians who were active in the community before, from our roots back in the late 90s, na nung time na parang mahirap pa maging lesbiana, 'di ba? Na parang you feel like back in the day, ikaw yung pioneer. Because ikaw yung most exposed. We were taking a lot of, excuse me, risks at that time. So, it's good to be reminded that that was 30 years ago at marami na tayong hindi alam ngayon, right? I feel like it's our duty to use the proper terms, to practice proper politics and behavior, and also listen and heed the advice of younger people and to read more. Hindi pwede yung parang tayo-tayo lang na matatanda because we're not going to reach anybody. And if, we kind of like use our guiding principle of being the person that you needed most when you were younger. Imagine if you were younger, tas merong gustong tumulong sa'yo, pero yung language niya offensive. Or pinipilit niya, ang tawag niya sa'yo, magic. Or tibo, right? And back in the day, that was okay. Pero ngayon, ayokong tinatawag na magic. So it's different. And the younger generation, ayaw nila na ng ganun na, okay, TB or whatever. Or security guard. Yung ano mo yun, parang just be more sensitive. Maybe hindi ka na parang sobrang vulnerable, and you should be grateful for that. But remember how vulnerable you were back in the day pag nakakarinig ka nung hindi maganda. That's how it feels when older lesbians don't want to adapt to modern terminology. That's how I feel. Do you also feel that you need to be more updated with current terminology?
Oh, yes. Um, there's so much current terminologies talaga right now,
Mhm.
right? Then remember us, it's like LGBT.
Tapos
Tapos,
na. Tapos na parang walang ano, 'di ba? And
oh,
actually, even if LGBT lang nun, nakafocus talaga sa lesbian and gay. Bisexual people actually had to fight so hard
yes.
para lang ma-recognize kasi it wasn't a thing na parang pinipilit yung mga bi people to choose a side, ganon, di ba? Kasi I
Yes. That's a good
guess,
topic actually.
yeah, that's really good topic, biphobia. Probably good to have a guest kasi para
Yes.
hindi tayo maging masyadong limiting. But just back
True.
then, I guess kasi as
Totoo.
gay people, we were risking so much. And parang you want to really be firm in your
Na
identification.
isa
And
lang.
by people were threatening, right? To purely homosexual or lesbian, purely lesbian or purely gay. It was, I feel like it was threatening kasi parang, ay ano ka, ano yun, ano ba yun, nagdadalawang bangka ba yun tawag? Or kasi
Yes,
parang,
unsure, 'di ba?
'di ba,
Parang,
parang one foot you're taking the risk of being gay, but the other foot parang straight ka pa rin. So parang ganun yung ano thinking before,
exactly.
right? So
You're
I
doubting
can,
that person.
right? And then trans people, especially back then, very misunderstood. Trans people were already very much present, and actually, we owe it to trans people that we even have a
Right.
community right
Yes.
now. But always being dismissed, just like by people before. So imagine kung nadi-dismiss na yung dalawang groups na yon. Back then na LGBT lang. What more now na ang dami na
Yes.
ng part ng acronym, right?
Yes, so
You
it's
know?
really important to know. For me
Mhm.
kasi right now, it's the start of really knowing everything.
Everything.
Maybe in the next 30 years,
Mhm.
we just describe each other as human.
Yeah.
Tapos,
Yeah.
right? So
You
right
can't
now,
skip. You
yes.
cannot skip.
Yes, nothing na. So right now, 'di ba, you at least it's clear na okay, this person feels this way. That
Mhm.
means, it's so nice to understand. Like when we talked about grief, right? We can put a word to what
Mhm.
we're feeling, right?
Mhm.
So it's a nice description. Words, as you said, are very important. And
Yeah.
it's important also to a person, right?
Yeah. It's empowering, it's liberating, right? Kasi 'di ba, like I like your example on the grief. Kasi 'di ba yung grief topic natin, parang if you're experiencing grief, parang feeling mo ang sad ko lang,
Mm-mm.
nawalan ako. But when you hear the terms, the stages of acceptance first of all, or different ways of coping, or like if you like hear things na Oh, everybody experiences grief. Grief, my favorite, grief is a bill that you have to pay
Yeah.
eventually. Parang you realize that, and then you're more understanding of yourself and more
Mhm.
forgiving. So
Exactly.
the
Of yeah,
power of
of
language.
compassion.
I
It's
guess
really
we need,
powerful.
yeah, we need to think about how empowered we were to actually say I'm a lesbian. Nung
Oh
time
my.
na yun, 'di ba, parang kinikilabutan nga ako actually ngayon to say that because it held so much power for us to reclaim that word na ginagawang insulto. Yung tomboy ka, no,
Tomboy ka.
ganyan-ganyan. Tapos yung sabihin
Exactly.
mo, oh, tomboy ako, eh ano. 'Di ba, it was so empowering for us, para ang tapang natin, right?
Yes.
So,
And yes,
right?
and
And
again, for me, I had to really, okay, this is you. You
gagawin ko na.
described yourself as this. Eto na yon. 'Di ba?
'Di ba?
Parang,
I
it's
think
for
we should
others, it might be
remember.
nothing.
We should
For us,
remember
it's,
that.
mhm,
Should remember how empowering that was for us before, and give that same kind of grace and allow other people who don't fit into those first four letters to
yes.
say that too, feel empowered without us mga lola questioning them, 'di ba? Kasi parang wag na,
Oo
right?
nga, eh, ang gulo-gulo, mga gano'n pa, 'di ba?
'Di
Even
ba?
saying that ang gulo-gulo, again, you stop them from expressing themselves and
Mhm.
they'll stop communicating
Yeah,
again, 'di
right?
ba? So
You
yeah,
know.
so with that, so it's very important, the terms, that's why us as well, I really need to know more about
Yeah.
it.
It's an
So,
effort.
okay. So with that, let's start with the queer alphabet or acronym. 'Di ba dati nga as we talked about it, LGBT lang ngayon, ang dami na talaga. So why do we need to recognize or at least know all the terms that the LGBTQIA plus stands for?
Like we mentioned earlier, I feel like primarily to allow people to have their own identity without us parang cock blocking and saying na we're the only ones allowed. Just go back to that feeling that you had before. Yung pag sinabi mo na gay ka tapos may mamimilit sa'yo na hindi. Confused ka lang. 'Di ba? Yung confused ka lang, makakahanap ka din ng lalaki, yung gano'n na sobrang dismissive. Think back to that time na parang you felt small because somebody would not validate your own experience, your own identity. When we don't recognize all the different parts of the spectrum or the rainbow, this is the feeling that we are giving to others. So we know that for a fact that it's not just LGBT anymore. So it's no longer acceptable to stop at LGBT and
Yes.
to laugh at the acronym. Parati ko kasi narinig to, especially sa mga older gay people, yung sinasabi na LGBT, ABC, 1, 2, 3, whatever, whatever, baala kayo dyan, gulo-gulo. Yung it's very, very disrespectful. Baka akala nyo it's funny, but it's not. Pag nakakarinig kasi ng gano'n yung nakakarinig ka ng gano'n parang, "Ay ang tanda naman nito," tsaka parang, it's very insulting and it's very invalidating and offensive, right?
True.
Right? So,
Parang yes.
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Parang kasi we came from that, eh. So
Yeah,
yun, that's what I don't understand, eh. Yung parang how they are dismissive of the new terms that come up because
'di
it's
ba?
really interesting. And
Yeah.
actually ako, I find it fascinating. I didn't even think of that before. Parang, ay, oo nga, no? You cannot dismiss it, eh. Parang, and I'm thinking, you were in that situation
Mhm.
before. How can you do that to the people now who are in that and are now actually finding words? Kasi sometimes I can see people saying, wow, there's something actually out there that describes me. That's
Yeah,
what I hear
how
from,
liberating, 'di ba?
yes,
Imagine that
exactly.
time, when we were all coming out, how empowering it was to say, lesbiana ako, babae ako, nagmamahal din ako ng kapwa kong babae. And I don't have to be a man. I don't have to act like a man. I can just love a woman like being a woman. It was so liberating. Even though we had to fight it all the time kasi ang daming resistance nun, di ba? Ang daming nagsasabi na hindi, di lalaki ka pala. Right? Parang
Yeah.
hindi, no. And then you
Mhm.
had to keep fighting it. And it was so frustrating pag dinidismiss ka. So, that was our word, and that was our fight before, and that was our fight for our identity before. And now people who feel that there are newer terms that apply to them more, we really should allow them that, right? So I guess let's start with the first few letters of the acronym para lang quick definition in case may nagwa-wonder kung ano nga ba talaga yung mga ibig sabihin nun. We already know LGBT, right? Lesbian, gay,
Yes.
bisexual, transgender. So let's proceed to the next part of
Yes,
the
the
acronym.
QIA plus. So actually, yung Q nga, that can be queer or questioning. But I'm gonna use the word queer. So queer is a term used by those wanting to reject specific labels of romantic orientation, sexual orientation, and or gender identity. Well, we have also to discuss that pala, no?
Yeah.
Grabe, so many.
Bago din
So
kasi yung queer.
yes, and then gender identity and sexual orientation are two different things, and
Mhm.
people don't really
Yeah.
think about that, right? Pero ako personally, I would define it as someone who is part of the community who is non-conforming,
Mhm.
right? So well, we know queer before is being odd, right? Or
Right.
different. So it's a negative actually term
Back then.
before, but it's so nice how the queer community is reclaiming that
Yeah.
term now, right? And then they're proud that I'm queer. And ako, kasi people will have different definitions and
Mhm.
how they would
Mhm.
perceive what queer is. But I know when somebody says queer, nagigets ko na agad. Parang
Mhm.
ganon. I think because I've met a lot of our um friends, right? They would describe themselves as queer. Although before they would say lesbian, but you know what? I think I would like rather describe myself as queer. So
Mhm.
parang when they said, nagigets mo na. So for me, it's really somebody who's non-conforming within the spectrum, but is part of the community pa rin.
Yeah. Mhm.
So yan. So let's go now to letter I. So intersex. So a person is born with a combination of male and female biological traits. And sometimes their organs, right? Like
Mhm.
they're born with that. So
Uh-huh.
this one is also, wow, if I can interview somebody, I haven't spoken with an intersex person yet, but I would like to because it's sometimes
It's really interesting
it's
and
interesting and pero ang mahirap doon is when they were born, it's the parents who would say, "Okay, take this out or make sure ito
yeah.
lang," 'di ba?
Mhm.
That's the part
The,
that's challenging eh, na parang hindi ba naisip ng magulang, you don't know, right? I know
yeah.
it's just genitals, but it's very important, right?
Yeah,
So,
there's a interesting, sorry to interrupt,
go,
but
go, go,
there's
go,
a
yes.
really interesting documentary actually. I think it might be called Intersex or Intersection or something. I think it's on Amazon, but it's a really good documentary on the experiences of intersex people from like they're older now, but what they experienced before. And hindi lang kasi to pinag-uusapan, but there are a lot of
Yes.
intersex people among us. It's not an acceptable word anymore to use hermaphrodite, but if it helps you understand what intersex is, it's basically what we used to call hermaphrodite before, someone with both like sexual characteristics, genitals, whether internal or external. So when intersex people are born, yun nga, like you mentioned, sometimes the parents, they don't know what to do. The doctors give advice on whatever they feel like is more acceptable to society, but it's not what is best for the child like
Person,
growing up. So
yes.
really good documentary if you are interested. I actually met somebody who has a child who is
Wow.
intersex in the Philippines. And so the resources are very limited.
Yes.
And although straight itong kakilala ko na mom, she had to really educate herself on what to do for her own child. And
Yes.
I know that intersex people exist among us, hindi lang talaga pinag-uusapan because it's very personal and it's very such a cause for stigma pag nalaman. But it does exist and it's good for us, first of all, to understand and to know the terms intersex, and also because of that, and that there's struggles to accept them as part of the acronym, right, and not be
Yes.
dismissive. Yeah, so go ahead.
Exactly. 'Di ba? So, kasi sometimes I'm thinking sa sobrang dami ng tao sa mundo, like we're so many, definitely there will be really a big population,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of intersex people or trans everybody. So something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
So asexual, a person who does not experience sexual attraction. Some asexual people experience romantic attractions while others do not. Asexual people who experience romantic attractions might also use terms such as gay, bi, lesbian, straight, and queer in conjunction with asexual to describe the direction of their romantic attractions. So this
Ace,
is
di ba?
also
Ace,
ace.
what they call ace.
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't know.
Ace. Yeah, I'm ace, I'm pan, but and I'm ace. Like younger people actually say that now.
That's good, right? And then you, of course, you want to respect that, right? Hindi mo
Yeah, yun.
i-force na parang feeling mo machismo ka or
Pag
whatever.
walang
Kaya ako,
ace.
oo, kaya ko yung palit. Di ba? You try to
Yeah.
convert. Walang,
You
that's why you
basically,
have
yeah,
to
because
know.
kasi when you say those things, parang you invalidate someone's identity. That person is already saying I'm ace, right? So I don't experience sexual attraction. Whether that wasn't the case before or whether it's going to change in the future is none of
Exactly.
your
Yes.
business.
Exactly. That's
They're
what I want.
identifying as that right now, and we need to respect it.
Yes. And you should remember what Kia said. Whether it changes in 6 years, eight
It
years,
doesn't
10
matter.
doesn't matter, right? Pag, oh, dati nga yun, di ba? So,
Oh,
exactly,
diba?
things you want to ponder on and think about. So,
All right.
ang galing din we talked about that Ace na parang why is it part of the
Mm-hmm.
community?
Mm-hmm.
Because nga, struggle pa rin siya eh.
Yeah.
This person has to come out and
Yeah.
express themselves as
And you're
somebody who's
discriminated.
asexual. Yes, they're also
Diba?
discriminated
Or
talaga.
parang kasi tatanungin, bakit pa kailangan i-share pa yan? It's
Exactly.
personal. It's
Mm-hmm.
personal. Yeah, maybe it's personal to you, but if someone is empowered enough or brave enough or feels strongly to identify themselves as such, it's not for you to say na wag na dapat pag-usapan. Right?
Exactly. And you can always ask. We will talk about that later.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So, Kia, what is plus? So, what does that stand for naman?
So you see that often may plus sa likod or sometimes LGBT plus or LGBTQ plus, LGBTQIA plus humahaba nga ng humahaba, but usually there's plus in the end. When you see the plus, it just means that we recognize the people on the spectrum that's not explicitly named. Wala pa sila doon sa acronym, and the people that are to come, right? So outside LGBTQIA, some people actually put the number 2 for two spirit. Two spirit is actually considered sometimes a third gender in indigenous people's culture, right? So we can't dismiss that because by dismissing that, you're dismissing indigenous people too. So some people believe that maybe they're two spirit, and whether however that sounds to you, you still need to respect someone identifying as two spirit. Non-binary, right? We hear this now, NB, sometimes letter N and letter B, or sometimes shortcut is ENBY. NB means non-binary, so they don't identify as either just male or just female. Sometimes they're both, or sometimes they're not either. They feel like they don't belong to either category. Sometimes they use the pronoun they, right? So that's one. Agender, and then it's used for someone who doesn't actually like, just feels like I don't fit into any of these genders, or someone who believes that gender is not necessary. And that's fine. Because as a culture where I feel like we're so obsessed with gender, di ba? Yung
Yes.
mga gender
So
reveal. Alam mo,
obsessed.
natuturn off ako
Grabe.
dyan sa gender reveal. I don't confession. As parang, I don't like it pagka merong gender reveal. I know that people just want to celebrate their children, and it's nice to celebrate whether you're having a boy or whether you're having a girl. But I just feel like this emphasis on gender, um it just really restricts us in these
Yes.
gender stereotypes. Kasi
Exactly.
parang, why are you celebrating the boy masyado, or parang celebrating the girl, or asking a father or a mother, anong mas gusto mong yung anak mo, babae or lalaki? it just shows all your stereotypes and your preconceived
Biases.
notions about gender, because it does not follow kung ano man yung isipin mo na gusto ko lalaki para kasama ko sa sports or para may barkada ako. It doesn't apply. You can have the best female athlete for a daughter. Yung mga ganun, masyado siyang limiting. So I don't really support all this focus on gender talaga, kasi
Me too.
I feel like it's not good for the kid. That's all. So ally, someone who supports the community, maybe doesn't identify as any of the parts of the acronym, but they support the community. So a lot of people say I'm an ally. We don't take that term lightly.
Yes.
So if you're gonna say you're an ally, you can't just say, oh, tanggap kita, tapos bahala na. And then you don't want to use the proper pronouns, you don't want to use the acronym, you don't support whatever. You
Gay
can't just say,
marriage.
yeah, right? Or yeah, you can't just say you're an ally, because we will hold you accountable. We
True.
don't, yeah, you might feel that you're an ally, and
Lie.
thank you that you feel like you support us, but we do demand and require that the people who call themselves allies really, truly, fully support us. I think on gay people's terms. Because madaling magsabi na ally ka, pero gusto mo sa yung on your terms
Yeah.
sila they'll live their lives according to your terms, right? Ang dami kasing alay na, oh, hindi, tanggap ko naman, okay naman ako sa mga bakla or whatever, pero sana wag sila masyado maingay, right? Or sana wag sila magbibihis babae, sobra na yon, right?
Yeah.
Oh, di ba? Parang,
Natatawa ako.
or
Sobra.
parang, sobra na, parang, uy, wag naman PDA. Yung mga ganun na parang, ang
Yun.
dami mong rules, wag PDA, wag mo naman i-demonstrate, pwedeng discreet lang, or pwede, secret na lang, wag na pag-usapan, or pwede naman kayong ganyan or makipagrelasyon, basta wag lang kayong mag-asawa. Do not impose rules, because if you fully support somebody, again, reiterating, it's not on your terms, it's on their terms. So, very important for the allies. I love you, allies, and all the straight people who listen to us. Thank you so
Oh, yes.
much.
Thank you
I
so
really
much.
appreciate it. We do have a few of them. I think they really
Yes,
enjoy
I
our conversation. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate you guys being an ally. But we should be, just like as Tita lesbians, we are trying to update ourselves as allies.
Oh,
So
yes.
should you try to update yourself too, right? So pansexual, I think these are just people who are attracted to the person. It doesn't matter. You're just attracted to everybody. You don't limit yourself to gender, male or female, or non-binary. You don't limit yourself to whether they're lesbian, they're gay, they're straight, they're asexual, or whatever. You just love the person, and then bahala na, you just deal with it later, which I feel is a very, very healthy way of living your life. It's just not being limited to all these like qualities. And if you feel that
True.
way, that you have an attraction to everybody, bless you, you have a really big heart and a big, you know what? And also, I wish that I could love everybody. You know why? Dati kasi pag, yung sinasabi nila, oh, pag bisexual ka nga, that's great because you double your market. If you're if you're pansexual, meron ako actually friend na parang lifelong lesbian siya, gold star siya. That means she's never had a straight relationship. And then talagang, I think mga 30s, sabi niya, I'm going to try guys. Ako, bakit kayo ka pa magta-try ng guys? Sabi niya, gusto ko lang malaman kasi kung may chance na okay pala ako sa guys, I will double my market. 'Di ba? So, I think that's great. Kasi totoo naman eh. 'Di ba?
True.
Ang dami
Yes.
mong pagpipilian. So, if you're pansexual, you have all these people to choose from. Hindi ka masyadong limited. And we
Limited,
should,
yes.
let's not treat pansexual people like madamot sila and gusto nila lahat. It's something
Yes.
actually admirable to just
Oh,
love
yes.
everyone and to actually say, I just look for their heart. If, we're compatible, then I can date them. I'm not limited to anything. So that's great, right?
Yes,
Bi
that's true.
curious. I think this is a fairly old term. Bi curious is, I think straight ka pa lang, but you're kind of like curious what it's like to be involved, with the same gender, is what they call bi-curious. Aromantic, somebody who feels like they are not capable, or they don't want to be romantically involved. And that's fine too. Again, why do we have to name all of these things? Wag nang pag-usap. Actually, it's great because now you know. And there's a way to say it. Imagine kung kunyari back in the day, nagde-date ka. May nagsabi sa'yo, "Hi, I'm Ace." O di okay, good. You don't have to like discover it later on. I would love it kung I meet
Yes.
somebody, tas sabihin na nila kaagad, "I'm Ace" or "I'm a romantic." Then I don't have to waste my time, di ba? Kung hindi ako ganun din. It's
Yeah.
nice. Kasi kung if you
Exactly.
don't use these terms, we have all these expectations. Right? Tapos madi-disappoint ka. Meron ng term
Hurt
to use
ka.
for it.
Yes.
And people are empowered enough to use these terms. We should respect it. And also, stop making them change kung yun na nga yung, kung sino sila. Let's not try to change them. So, any other terms that I haven't mentioned, Leah? I know recently meron kang an
Oo.
experience with mask and butch.
Oo. So yun, that's the thing that mask. So recently ko lang na discover yun because nga TikTok, right? Although I don't have a TikTok account, but I think TikTok is good for the
Mm-hmm.
community because it really helps them express themselves and it just comes up, right? You may not find this anywhere yet, but people explain who they are through social media, which is really good. So, yun nga, mask. So, ako talaga, well, old school talaga ako. I love the word butch. It's iba eh. Iba lang sa akin. And, syempre, for me, kasi nga, pag sinabi masculine, doon na naman yung male. Parang
Mm-hmm.
meron pa rin
Uh-huh.
um, role. So,
Mm-hmm.
I really don't like mask kasi parang nga gusto mo maging lalaki ba? Of course, I don't wanna question, but that's the term now.
Now it's a
Like,
term now, and some people are comfortable with that. They don't
yes.
feel like it's off. I personally, maybe that makes me old. I don't like the term mask, like you said, kasi nga parang it's kind of like really very focused on being male. I feel like I grew up with the idea, the term butch as meaning you're a lesbian who's presents more as male or masculine, but the term butch itself is a lesbian term and not
Yes.
like mask. Like I'm more comfortable with that. I wish that it wasn't it's becoming outdated kasi yung butch, di ba? I guess some
Yeah.
people also feel like it's a slur, right?
Oh, yes.
So yeah, even though we're comfortable with that, we like that term. I guess the key point is find out how the person wants to refer to themselves, right? Kung ayaw nila ng butch, don't call them butch. Kung gusto nilang mask, edi mask. You can have your
Exactly.
own terms, and you can say whatever. You're allowed to say I'm attracted to masks, or I'm attracted to butches, whatever. But
True.
just be respectful, like, right?
Exactly. Ako, I'm excited nga to get to know more about the community because right now, of course, I'm available. So, I'm so excited because nga, like, back in the Philippines, I really go out. Pag meron, kasi ang liit-liit ng community sa Pilipinas,
Yeah,
feeling ko,
yeah,
'di ba? Na parang if there's a party, why not? Because it becomes like a safe space eh. 'Di ba? Kahit minsan hindi siya safe space kasi nga marami rin nag-aaway. Because nga, we grew up in a culture na pag lalaki, 'di ba, nakakalalaki ka, ganyan.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
they bring it also within the community.
yeah.
So, if we go to a party, third dimension, I'll mention that. That's one of the first, ano,
That's
nag-away
such a
talaga
long
yung mga
time.
butches. Pero yung mga bata, parang kami, nagkatinginan lang. Because of course, I think they see it in TV eh. For me, yun lang yun eh, na parang, kasi ganun ang
No,
lalaki. So,
titignan mo
kasi
yung chicks
butch
ko.
kami.
You
Oo,
know,
di
like,
ba? Ano ba? Ganun, di ba? So, anyway, it's just funny for me that way. Pero exactly, you can always ask naman. Ako, I'm that curious eh. So, you define yourself as mass? Talaga, can you give me more? What do you mean? Ganon.
yeah, yeah, and
Would
you
say.
learn that
You
it's not
learn talaga.
necessarily rooted in men or being male, but you know what? Maybe they're reclaiming that, right? Na parang,
True.
yeah, you can be masculine, but it has nothing to do with men.
Yan.
It's just
Exactly.
something, yeah, right? And that would be fantastic because that's also something that we've been trying to fight for from the beginning of time, in reclaiming, like, being able to wear pants, or just like something that is typically
Yes.
something that men wear. Maybe, yeah, bow tie. Maybe the use of mask is something like that. So to just be open. I wanted to mention a term that I learned recently to denote
Sige.
non-binary nieces or nephews. Kung meron, kasi matanda na tayo, so meron tayong mga pamangkin. If they're non-binary, the term is nibbling. So you don't have to call, oh, my nephew or my niece. If they're non-binary, they're not going to be comfortable with those terms. So the term is
I like
nibbling.
that.
So isn't that cute?
Sobra.
I think like
I do that.
as we add more letters to the acronym, the
Yes.
emphasis is not to know it all. It's impossible to know it all
No
because
talaga.
it's changing, it's developing, it's very dynamic, right? It's a growing list. And as years go by, we discover more terms that are more appropriate to use for each group or more appropriate like for people to identify with. But the most important part is just being open and accepting and being willing to learn instead of being dismissive. Yung pagka sinabi na sa nga sa'yo, no, that term is like this, tita. Tapos, don't insist on your own term, right? Don't insist and also don't dismiss. Yung wag na yan. Bakit sasabihin mo pa yan? Yan na yung, doon na lang kayo. Basta gamitin mo na lang plus. You know, like, if someone is, yung, just don't again, just same for allies and everybody else, it's not on your terms. It's on the other person's term. Kung gusto nilang gamitin yon, let them, let them discover, right? You can provide guidance if you want.
Yes.
Just don't dismiss. Don't invalidate. Madali na kasing makalimutan how that felt because it just feels like now, okay, accepted na, there are laws, you can go to the States and Canada and Europe, you can get married, right, to your same gender partner. So parang feeling mo, ay, wala nang struggle. So wag na kayong magulo, right? Diba? But there are still people who are struggling. Young people are still wanting like some kind of identity. They want to come out as something and maybe the term that's available is not appropriate for them. You should let them use what they want and be respectful, right? So
Yes.
why
It's
do you think the using the proper terms is important in
very
dealing
important.
with people?
Yes. Gusto ko yung sinabi mo yung provide guidance, diba? Because sometimes in the Philippines, in this nice chat room, we do have group, older titas talaga, older lesbians, parang they get to meet the younger generations and they use terms loosely now, 'di ba? Kasi siyempre ang dami na eh. So, ang dami. So, sometimes we're trying to think about it, but if you make, if you're really reading and getting the research, 'di ba? Sometimes you might suggest things. Naisip mo ba maybe you're transgender, 'di ba? Na
Yeah.
parang you describe yourself as a lesbian, pero the way you're, 'di ba? So ang
Yeah.
dami. Some people kasi now tendency they use the term loosely. So it's also nice to be able to guide and let them think. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not dismissing.
Mm-hmm.
So very important talaga for me nga because nga it's really nice to have a term for that right now. Because I think talaga this is like an evolution. It's so
Yeah.
nice that our generation can witnesses a lot of things, no?
Yeah,
Na
right?
parang,
I
it's
feel like
so,
we have the most.
no, changes from
Yes,
analog to
changes.
digital
Yeah, to
to
everything.
everything, the gender spectrum. It
Yeah.
makes, and it's nice if you keep yourself open kasi parang, oh wow, for me, there's so much things na I talk to myself siguro because I always wanna discover a lot more na parang, yeah, hindi ko yun naisip dati. 'Di ba? Na parang, pwede pa nga pala yun, 'di ba?
And treat
So that's for me.
people like, right? Treat people with the same kind of acceptance no matter what, right? I think you need to
Very
have that
important.
attitude na the more the merrier instead of being a gatekeeper. Na parang wag na kayo, hindi kayo kasali dito. You
Exactly.
never wanted to feel that way back then. So don't close the door on people even if it's something that you don't understand. Be the
Yes.
one to welcome them in and try to
In
understand instead of being dismissed, because if you don't understand or you don't want to use the proper terms, you are othering them. You're
yes.
parang setting them aside na parang, oy, kabilang hindi kayo. Parang, hindi, ang gulo nyo eh. Hindi to, this place is only for gay people. Hindi to pwede sa mga trans because, deep inside, they feel like yung trans people confused or whatever. Like, do not be a gatekeeper. We are
True.
all part of a community, whether maybe we don't fully understand or completely understand each other. You shouldn't shut the door on anybody.
Yes. So with that, because we mentioned already, not othering, right? So we also want to discuss the importance of intersectionality. This
I
is so
like
nice.
this,
Me
right?
too. Because this one talaga siguro a year, 2 years, really now, we're also now in our D&I. As I'm so happy with my office. Kahit minsan gusto ko umalis doon, I'm like, parang ayoko kasi, 'di ba? Ang okay ng program, you wanna see where it goes,
Mm-hmm.
no? So this is defined as is the systematic study of the ways in which differences such as race, gender, sexuality, class, ethnicity, and other social-political and cultural identities interrelate. Woo!
Max, ang haba.
In Tagalog, parang definitely it's like ako. Exactly what I was talking about a while ago, 'di
Mm-hmm.
ba? I'm so active with the Pride Professional Network,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm also active with the Asian Professional Network.
Mm-hmm.
So if you look at me, ito na, lahat na. I'm lesbian, I'm Asian, I'm Gen X. So, ang dami ko ng, yun na yung intersectionality.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, there's a lot, it cannot be, my issues or my concerns cannot only be my concern as a lesbian, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have concerns as an Asian woman as well. As a woman, I also have
Mm-hmm.
concerns as a woman, right? Not even just like a lesbian, but only a woman. So there are so many things you want to consider already, not
Mm-hmm.
only one part of that person,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, yun na yung intersectionality. I hope I was able to explain.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
so ikaw, so that's na, yun ang, ngayon sa amin, so, to add that, because it's Pride month, our Pride month theme is
Oh,
intersectionality.
that's great.
So
Very
we do have,
coincidence.
yeah, so we do have, in our activity for the month, we have mga short film festival, short films talaga, like mga 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So we have, for the Black Professional Networks, we have a day for LGBTQI plus shows or films, and
Mm-hmm.
then cater to the Black
Mm-hmm.
community. So we also have for the Asian Professional Network. So
Mm-hmm.
we're having that, that's our theme right now, intersectionality. So
Mm-hmm.
exciting talaga. Ikaw, how
Right.
about you? How do you understand intersectionality?
I guess we have to go to the root word. Where's the root word of intersectionality? Is it intersection, right? I feel like uh understanding intersectionality, you want to have that realization na we are not one-dimensional people. Hindi tayo parang bading ka lang, so therefore there's nothing else. You have a different, many different parts of you. I think going back to what you mentioned earlier of the equity, right? It's again the emphasis that nothing is one size fits all. Maybe you want to cater to or support, for example, the lesbian community. Hindi pwedeng white lesbian community lang, Caucasian lang. There's an Asian community. Our culture is different. You have to address things differently because there are cultural nuances, right?
Yes.
If you are Muslim, there's so many
Yes.
other things
Oh
that you
my
need to
gosh. Yes.
consider. If you're wealthy, if you're not so wealthy, if you're disabled, especially, is very part of
Yes.
uh, intersectionality. Very much discriminated and disregarded ang disabled people, 'di ba? Because or neurodivergent people, for
Oh
example,
yes.
parang okay,
Dami pa.
magagawa ka ng Pride March, like 100,000 people, do you have
True.
accommodations for those who are disabled? Do you have a sign language interpreter? Do you have wheelchair accessibility? Yung mga ganun na it's easy to say, hindi, wag na. Let's just cater to the mainstream. It's not. You have to cater to all different kinds of people. Very basic example nito is in the Philippines, the ones who are most exposed to itong queer politics, lesbian politics, or all these things na that cater to our own education and our own understanding of our sexuality, usually accessible lang siya to a certain part of society, a certain
Yes.
social class, a certain level of education. So parang medyo yung nami-meet mong mga tao sa community, parang medyo pare-pareho kayo. Right? Like, I think there was an example of this before, yung first time nagkaroon ng lesbian meetup where, back in the day, I think 80s pa yata or very early 90s. Tapos, parang nagkita-kita tapos na-meet ng mga Manila, medyo social, middle to upper class lesbians. Yung talagang the real lesbians that make up lower middle class to lower class of the Philippines, which are the ones who are most discriminated and most
Yes.
affected by all the oppression and the discrimination. Tapos sasabihin mo, hindi, kasi angiologs nila eh. So, diba? Parang
Exactly.
that's an
Exactly.
example of intersectionality. Again, do not be a gatekeeper. Just because yung nakikita mo ay nakakausap mo, kayo-kayo lang din. You know that even with your own struggles, you are not bearing the brunt of discrimination and the hardship of being a lesbian. It's the ones who don't have the education, don't have the power, don't have the high power careers that you have. The ones that actually are the security guards or actually are the ones who are in professions na, you're really discriminated as a woman, right? Do not dismiss everyone. Or again, like earlier, yung gay or lesbian ka, or ayaw mo sa bi, trans, or non-binary, again, you're excluding people. And that idea really does not fit into our advocacy when you say it's just us. The others, othering, hindi kasama.
Yes.
When we say inclusive and welcoming, the opposite of that is exclusive and unfriendly or not approachable. You know, like, okay, gagawa ka ng exclusive na party, pero yung dress code kailangan, to the nines lang. You know, right? It's not accessible nga to all. So how can you say that, okay, all are welcome or gay people are welcome? Or I think more current events example of this is mahilig ka mag happy pride, but you don't make any effort na makatulong ka sa less fortunate. Or racist ka. Very good example. Kasi ang daming racist sa Pinas, right? Yung
Oh,
parang,
yes.
okay, I accept all genders, gender expression, all sexual orientation, pero dapat maputi lang ah.
Exactly.
Right? Ayoko nung itim, ayoko nung mga dugyot, yung ganun yung attitude mo. It's very simple, but we do it all the time and we hear it all the time na ayaw mo ng certain kind. So that's not being intersectional. And also, if you support the gay community, pero ayaw mong ma-educate sa ng cultural events, you are fine with the genocide in Gaza, for example. That is very, very bad. You're not just practicing intersectionality, but you're being complicit to mass murder. So don't say na, oh, I have a good heart because I'm a queer ally or I'm gay, I'm active in the gay community or whatever, but you turn a blind eye to the injustices outside of you or even in the Philippines na nangyayari,
Oh my
right?
gosh,
Nangyari yan na
yes.
parang, oh, active ako sa community, I support the gay community, pero okay ka lang sa EJK.
Exactly.
That
Exactly.
not only is that not being intersectional, which is something that people
That's
are
sad.
quite easy to dismiss, but that
Yung mga
means you
Pilipino.
are supporting the biggest evil that has ever happened to us. So
Exactly.
do not be a queer rights advocate na wapakels sa current events and wapakels sa injustices of others, because that means kasama ka. Like, okay, you're empowered, supportive gay person, but you're allowing mass murder. It doesn't add up, and that is not what we are all fighting for, right? You cannot say that support queer people's lives if you do not support all lives, right? So,
Exactly. Nice
right?
said. Oh
You
my gosh.
like that?
Ang dami kong, kasi I really, what's nice about being really part of this, you really don't become quiet anymore eh. Ako,
Yeah.
that's me now eh. Parang I cannot be quiet. I have to react. Oh my gosh. Sometimes nga sa Facebook, syempre, Facebook is like, woo, the central talaga na it's either you want to remove that person kasi toxic or you want them to stay because you want to educate, 'di ba?
Mhm.
I had that thin line na talaga na parang, oh my gosh, this person. I had to say last comment and then delete. Because yun ang weird eh. Parang this person, nakikita niya yung injustices sa Gaza, which okay. But he's gonna say something about women, about this women director. Basta talaga ako, ay, ang gulo. So anyway, so
Yeah.
I had to speak my mind every time because very dangerous eh, 'di ba?
Mhm.
It's very dangerous whatever you're posting. I would ask them questions first, 'di ba? Why do you say that? Parang ganon. And then
Mhm.
I would just say at the end, I just feel bad for your other contacts because definitely I'm sure you have maybe like a gay friend or in that. Kasi they're posting that eh. Hindi ba nila isip na, you have somebody in your contacts to
Mhm.
be reading those things. And it's
Right?
danger. For me, it's just dangerous. Yan,
It's
ang galing ng
dangerous, you
sabi.
said. It's very revealing, right?
Yes.
Of
And
people.
if nobody talks about it, they would think, oh, and then others will agree. Ako yun
And
sa
that's how
akin,
you
na parang,
start. That's how it
yes.
begins.
'Di ba, nagiging empowering. Yun yung gusto ko rin sabihin nga, especially now, the algorithm is so dangerous also eh, 'di ba, in
Yeah.
Facebook. Eventually, it becomes truth. 'Di ba, Thousand Cuts, Maria Ressa, exactly. If it comes in your Facebook several times, it becomes true to you, which is scary. So
Mhm.
anyway, that's another topic, but
Language.
definitely, yes. So, yun nga, if you're here also about the genocide nga, it's part of the queer community eh.
Yeah.
Ang, if, doon ako na, talaga the people here, the queer community really are one against, mass murder. The killings of children and women, my gosh, you should be
It doesn't
affected by
matter
that.
what the politics is behind it. You need to be against it. It's not
Yeah.
rocket science. So,
It's killing, di
right?
ba? Who has the right to kill a person just like that, di ba?
Yeah.
So yes, so we need to think about others and not just ourselves, right? Which brings up to our next topic of transgender people and the importance of including them in the discussion. So with this, ako, for me then before I couldn't understand as I told you, but it's
Mhm.
important for me to know them better. That
Mhm.
happened nga. That was just I had an awakening nga.
Mhm.
So we had the LGBT
Mhm.
conference which we hosted, which was so nice. So we had the transgender community there. Doon ako na-awaken. Doon yung I'm so happy I joined that. I'm so happy I helped organize it. Simple lang ng sinabi nung transgender nung time na yon. She's a transgender woman. She goes, ganito ko i-explain, 'di ba? Kasi in our head, it's like you want to be that other
Mhm.
gender. You don't want your current gender, 'di ba? Ang explain niya is, ikaw, alam mo na nararamdaman mo, 'di ba? Tinatanong niya, ikaw, so how do you identify? Sabihin niya, male. Okay, so alam mo na lahat. Lalaki ka na lahat. And then, when you look in the mirror, you see the face of your sister.
Mhm.
Yun yung feeling nila. Which I'm like, aha moment talaga yun sa akin na parang, okay, yun pala. Like me, I feel this, girl talaga ako, and then when I see the mirror, it's my brother. Okay. That was just my aha moment talaga. And
Yeah.
ang nalungkot din ako sa isang kwento is that's where talaga you will really feel, hindi lang siya empathy, you be compassionate to their feelings na rin eh. So some transgender women in the Philippines would buy cinema tickets to just go to a bathroom because nobody's there.
Mhm.
Imagine mo yon. Iihi ka lang, you just wanna pee. That's
Mhm.
all you want to do. But you can't go to
The
the
bathroom.
proper bathroom that you wish to go to because you
Yeah.
feel comfortable. I- You're transgender and you go to it's scary. It's like us. a female going to a male bathroom, that's just it. You wouldn't
Mhm.
go to a male's bathroom, period.
Mhm.
They have to buy a $300, sorry, 300 peso ticket just to pee. And I was just
Mhm.
like, oh my gosh,
Mhm.
hindi dapat yun. That's not right. So dun
Yeah.
talaga ako, after that conference, I'm like, okay, I get it now.
Mhm.
So yun. So ikaw, what is your experience about the treatment of trans people in the Philippines?
You know, admittedly, because I've also been pigeonholed sometimes in my thinking, parang medyo narrow-sighted and focused on being homosexual and just being a lesbian. Medyo parang na-disregard ko sometimes yung trans community. It actually, this was many years ago, over 10 years ago na I was having like an online conversation about trans people. And then, yung talagang definition ko was my definition from the 90s pa. And again, because it's ever changing, that's why you need to update yourself. Because back then, in the 90s, trans people were defined as you are born in the wrong body and you want to be the opposite sex. You know, ano ko, so parang, oh, I'd actually defined it during a conversation with trans people na, oh, if you're trans men, so is it right that you're a woman but you want to be a man? And then I was humbly corrected by the trans man and educated, fortunately, and told that it's not that way. It's just that when we're born, we are assigned a gender based on what the person who first saw us, the adults around us, saw our genitals and already assigned, babae ka, therefore, pak, 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 wear pink. You have to be feminine, you have to do this, you have to be a mother, you have to be a wife. Yung parang automatic na, katulad yung nga sa gender reveal. When it's not the case, because right now it's universally accepted that gender is not dictated by your genitals anymore, right? Like gender is actually a human invention. It's a state of mind, it's a feeling. So now the definition is no longer you're a woman wanting to be a man or a man wanting to be a woman. You were assigned the wrong gender at birth. And once I understood that, then I realized automatically the great injustice that we are doing to trans people because we assign them the wrong gender and then we insist to follow that wrong gender. Right? So when you understand that because you educated yourself, then you become more compassionate instead of like saying, hindi mali ka kasi pinipilit mo yung hindi tama, yung hindi ganyan. You're not gonna insist on what you want anymore. And I was so grateful for that conversation because then I learned so much. Of course, nakakahiya, right? Because parang, ay, shit, hindi mo alam. But when are we going to learn?
True.
We are not going to learn until we admit that we don't know everything. I know that we see a lot of trans people now in the Philippines, very visible na actually lot of resources and actually communities for trans men and trans women now. But are we really treating trans people fairly? Do we really truly understand? Or are we just treating them as like parang some kind of like freak or some kind of like, oh, we are treating trans identity as parang makeup or parang a costume when it's not. You know, it's actual identity and it's how trans people feel that they can exist in this world is to express themselves in a way that feels right to them. So when you understand that, then you're going to be more respectful. Kung ano man yung itsura nila, maybe it's not your typical definition of
Yes.
maleness or being female. And you don't have to keep judging na parang pag nakakita tayo ng trans people, parang, hindi, halata pa rin. Or parang hindi talaga, mukha talaga. Yung parang inaano mo siya, parang you're telling a person na, uy, lumagar ka ha, hindi ka tunay na babae. You know, yung parang we're always saying na parang kahit ano pang gawin mo, hindi ka maging babae. Why do you have to insist on your own understanding when someone is just expressing themselves in the way that feels natural to them? Maybe that's not your idea of what a woman looks like, but that's too bad because that's what womanhood is. It applies to everybody who wants to be a woman, no matter how you express yourself, whether mag-makeup ka or hindi mag-makeup. It's, again, not to your understanding. It's to the person's understanding and to the person's comfort level. We are not here to make rules. We can't say na parang, oh, trans woman ka, bakit hindi ka parating nag-aahit? Bakit kailangan mahaba parating buhok? Well, like, stop making rules for people.
Exactly.
Let them, again, going back to the terminology, let them identify themselves the way they want and let them express themselves the way that they want. Parang, uy, hindi, mas maganda ka dati nung ganito ka. You know, bakit ba? Bakit? Who cares about you? No one cares about you. No one cares to hear how you think people should be or how people should act. Right? You really should just accept it because nandiyan na sila. Like, that's just, again, don't impose rules on others. And the reason I feel strongly about trans people, and I will always admit that I'm not trans, so I might not have the full understanding, or maybe I make mistakes in my terminology. But the fact of the matter is, and this is what touches me and makes me feel so strongly about the trans community, it's that there's so much violence directed towards trans people.
Grabe.
Trans people are 4 times more likely to experience violence, including rape, sexual assault, simple assault. Households with a transgender person in the home have a higher rates of property, like burglary, or just any kind of violence than cisgender households. And the most heartbreaking part, and that's why I try my best really to be educated and just try to be an accessible and a friendly resource, is that I know that trans people have very, very high suicide rates. Statistics, actually, I've looked up, 81% of transgender adults, at least in the US, I'm sure it's worse in other countries na wala talagang resources, 81% of trans adults have had thoughts of suicide. You know, I think like most trans kids and trans teens have really definitely thought of suicide. 42% of trans people have attempted suicide. Imagine, that means that 4 out of 10 trans people that na nakita mo, 4 have actually tried to end their lives just because the gender that they were assigned at birth is wrong and they feel like they have no way out, or their environment is restricting them on how they should express their true gender. How heartbreaking is that? And if for those who have not attempted suicide, 56% have self-harmed. 30% have substance abuse problems. So really, our resources need to be directed towards trans people because it's so hard to be trans. You are such at a great risk of being harmed, of having all these problems, substance abuse issues, emotional problems, and also very high risk for suicide. And I know some people might say, hindi ko problema yan. Right? Parang, so what? Sila naman dyan yung gusto nila magulo yung buhay nila, or they're the ones who are pretending or whatever. If that causes them to be suicidal, then bahala sila, that's their responsibility. I'm so sad when I hear that. I just feel like, are you living in a bubble? And maybe you don't know, or maybe one day you're forced to deal with a loved one who is either assaulted or harmed or self-harms just because they were not accepted in society, just because you did not give them the space to just be themselves. And maybe you won't understand that because you don't, sometimes you don't understand it because you never felt that way to the point na gusto mo magpakamatay to harm yourself, because maybe that's why, and that's great. You're very privileged. It doesn't mean that it's not painful if that happens to someone or if it happens to you. We all have a responsibility to take care of our youth. Kung ibang reason nga yan if you just say in general, tanggalin mo yung trans. Let's just say teens are a high risk of suicidal ideation. wouldn't you help them?
Definitely.
For no matter
For
what
that.
reason, you will give them the
Yes.
resources. It doesn't matter kung ano sila or what they're thinking. You just want to
Intersectionality.
help them.
Exactly.
Actually, my friend actually posted yung, I think, a video of Dwayne Wade's, I think, has a trans daughter,
Yes.
right? Yeah, trans
That's a
daughter. And of
wonderful
course,
athlete. I
he
love
is
it.
very much attacked because he's black. He's a black man. On why he's allowing his son to transition, because it's like nawawala yung macho, right? Like, don't allow that. You better beat her up para maging lalaki or whatever. And Dwayne Wade's answer was simply, I am a parent. My child is at risk of hurting herself or being harmed or being murdered or being raped just because of how she feels about herself. That is enough. It doesn't matter if I understand it or if I don't understand it. If you understand it, the community understands this. I don't want my child to get hurt. It's the only thing that we need to realize. And as people, even the ones who without children, just knowing that people, especially young people, are at risk of being harmed is the only thing we need to know. We
Exactly.
don't have to fully understand terminology, proper words, proper language, but we want to help stop young people from
Violence.
hurting themselves or being hurt in our own communities. That's
You
it.
know,
That's why it's so close to my heart. And I feel always inadequate in not knowing everything. But I feel like it's my job to just be fully supportive and just be around to say, I'm willing to learn
exactly.
and I understand. And together we'll figure it out. Right?
Exactly. What really bothers me is they're being abused, hurt. It's because of what they look like or what
Mhm.
they feel. It's not even doing anything. They're
Yeah.
not because they're a mean person, or well, there's no action. They just stand up because people have a perception.
Mhm.
Din ako nababother yung parang you have hatred to this person. You're doing this to this person because of what they look like. That's the
Othering
weirdest.
again.
Yes, not even doing anything. You don't even know that person. Maybe this person is the nicest person, yung pinakabait na tao to animals.
Doesn't
Doesn't matter eh.
matter.
Because, yes, it's just what they look like.
Yun.
That's bothering me talaga.
I
Na,
guess it's what's more conflicting and more hurtful is when it comes within the come from comes from within the community, right?
yes,
Because
exactly.
again, we know how that feels like. We know how it
Yes.
feels to be discriminated, to fear for your life, to be afraid of walking in like a dark place or a place that's full of men kung medyo ano ka, male presenting ka or maiksi yung buhok mo, you always are afraid that you're gonna be attacked because they're challenged, their masculinity is challenged if you're a lesbian. We all know how that feels like, but how dare we dismiss that in others, 'di ba? Or how dare we become the perpetrators of that same kind of discrimination to others when we were misunderstood that way na wala naman tayong ginagawa. We just look the way we look. We're just
Yes.
comfortable the way we dress. Tapos pahihirapan tayo in that way. It's the same thing. It's not so such a far
Or
reach to
exactly.
understand. It's just empathy.
Exactly. And to add to the statistics, actually, mas malaki pa yung black transgender
Yeah,
women. Mas
definitely.
grabe. I'm so shocked. And it's within the black community that
Yeah.
murders. There are a lot of black transgender women who are murdered. I'm just like, oh,
That's
grabe.
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking talaga that I can't fathom. My brain can't understand sometimes. Anyway,
Mhm.
with this, I want to go back to our terms of transgender and cisgender and define them. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to break it down. So transgender man. So with this, a term used to describe someone who is assigned female at birth but identifies and lives as a man. This may be shortened to trans man or FTM, an abbreviation for female to male. And then transgender woman, a term used to describe someone who is assigned male at birth but identifies and lives as a woman. This may be shortened to trans woman or MTF, an abbreviation for male to female. And then cisgender. Ayan, this is another term that comes up and everybody's asking bakit pa kailangan i-identify, 'di ba? So cisgender or cis, someone whose gender identity is the same as the sex they were assigned at birth. Non-trans is also used by some people. Yan. Actually, that's another term pala, cisgender. We had that question in the chat.
Yeah.
Bakit pa daw kailangan i-identify ang
Ng
cisgender?
cisgender, right?
So if you really think
Yeah.
about
Some people are offended actually by the
Yes.
cisgender, right? Because they say, why do I have to say cis when I'm the normal?
There you go.
I'm the normal.
There,
don't
you
have
just
to call
answered the
me
question.
cis, right? And that tells you everything you need to know.
Exactly. But
You shouldn't, why are you refusing to be called cis? Because you want to just say, I'm the right one. Right?
Exactly. So exactly, you're othering again. Parang kasi you are the correct and we're the
Yeah,
incorrect.
yeah.
But if you really think about gender identity,
Mhm.
that's all encompassing, right? You are part of the gender identity. It's not only in the LGBT. If you call gender identity, it's not only in the LGBT community. The straight community is part of the gender identity. That's why there's a discussion.
Yeah,
Diba?
right. And actually, the use of and identifying yourself as cisgender is actually a good thing, because when you say, oh, he's male and he's female, it could mean he's trans male and trans female, or cisgender male and cisgender female. So by using cisgender for yourself, if you are cis, that means you respect that we are all, for example, women, and some are trans women and some are cisgender women, instead of like saying, no, I'm normal, and the other trans woman is the not normal. Language is very important, and there's a reason they're coming up with these terms, is to welcome everybody instead of excluding everyone, right? So it's important to use the correct terminology here when we talk about trans people, using gender assigned at birth instead of biological sex, right? Because when we say gender, as we explained earlier, the gender assigned at birth, it's different from, oh, that's your biological sex, so therefore you need to, this follows, and blah, 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 right? And we also don't say it's a man who wants to become a woman. A trans woman is a woman. Period. And the only reason to discount a trans woman and to even care that a woman is a trans woman is if you have any concerns, if you're dating them and you have any concerns about whatever, genitals and whatever, that's the only time you're going to have the discussion. Otherwise, it's inappropriate. Inappropriate to ask about their genitals, right? Their surgical status. Paki mo ba? Hindi mo naman tinatanong yung babae dun sa kali kung totoo yung boobs niya or hindi. Right?
Exactly. These are the things you need to know. Continue.
Diba? You don't ask the woman on the street, retoko ba yung boobs mo or hindi? Gumagamit ka ba ng vaginal tightening? Pakialam mo ba? Right? The only time that matters is if you're gonna be naked with that person, and then you can have a personal discussion with that person. Otherwise, doesn't matter, and we shouldn't have these conversations, and we should never ask a trans person about their surgical status or transition status. That's why identifying themselves and respecting someone's identity is very important, because even if they say they're trans, again, it's not to us to say, hindi ka naman nag-surgery so paano ka trans? Again, it's not for us. That's why they identify kung trans sila, kung ano man yung expression nila, ano man yung gusto nilang suotin, trans sila, because they said they're trans. We respect them as trans. Not, again, based on our rules and our own standards, right? So understanding trans people, it leads to more acceptance.
Yes.
It leads to more respect. Instead of
Yes.
treating trans people as some kind of oddity or abnormality or parang delusion na parang always trying to put trans people in their place, parang kahit anong mangyari, babae ka pa rin, kahit anong gawin mo, lalaki. Why is it so important for you to put
Exactly.
people down?
Obsessed,
Why
no?
are you so insecure about your own sexuality, your own gender, na kailangan mong you need people to act the way you want them to act, or whatever you feel is not going to make sense, right? So um what else have you experienced about trans people now that you're interacting with them a lot now in your community and your job?
This is so nice. So I have a mentor,
Mm.
so also transgender, and really, that was just an introduction, and that's it. And now I really confide with her because it's sports. We're into sports, and then like
Mhm.
finally, cause I really wanna speak with women about sports, right? Because it's iba eh. Yes, men are nice to talk with about sports, but it's so nice to interact with another woman talking about sports.
Mhm.
Mentor ko pa. So
Mhm.
sobrang, it's so nice that we already have a really good relationship
Mhm.
even outside the mentoring part.
Mhm.
So I'm so happy, and it's so different na now for me talaga. Like, because sa akin naman, I integrated with sports because I'm a coach nga. So with my players, I don't even call them boys, come here. Team. So I learned so much. It's just ingrained with me already.
Mhm.
I really don't say boys already. And I've also attended a lot of talks about transgender inclusivity in sports. So it's also a nice topic. We can interview somebody. I think I'll be
Mhm.
able to get somebody. Because that's a really another topic. Transgender in sports is like a whole something different, and it's so nice. I can get somebody to interview with regarding that. So that's how I am right now. So every time I don't say she, he, it's so rare that I already use that. Because in grammar also, you can just say parang like Kia is a writer. They have published a lot, right?
Yeah.
That's proper grammar, right? And right now I identify them already on what they do, so it's not. I rarely use pronouns if I don't know the person. I
Mm.
don't use she or him. I would
Yeah.
say their name. Actually, I use just their name na lang because
Mhm.
I don't know how they identify, right? So, and it's because of that, when I introduce ourselves nga in at work, may pronoun talaga. I train. So now I'm
Mhm.
so comfortable. I introduce myself and I say my pronoun. So so nice that because I'm so immersed with it right now, even the way I address people is so different. Yun, with
Mhm.
my team, they're 8-year-old kids. So, and I don't say that also to their parents. I say your child. I
Mhm.
don't say your son. Even though, I mean, we are a boys team. So that's how immersing myself and speaking with a lot of people have really changed my language
Mhm.
actually.
Mhm.
So that's that's my kwento about being immersed with meeting trans people and
Mhm.
so
I
so it.
wanted to
Mhm.
tell a little story about something that happened. Probably it must be over 5 years ago, where there was a Facebook group of lesbians around our age. So these are familiar people. And then I guess it became a bigger community. And some of the lesbians there either started transitioning or were already transitioning. But I think there was a problem with one of the trans men, I think, was not behaving appropriately. And the response, instead of correcting the inappropriate behavior in that group, was instead to say, bawal ang lalaki dito or bawal ang trans men. So I think there was a time that, that was very hurtful for the people who were there, who were part of like original people when they were still identifying as lesbians, tapos nag-transition. It's parang, it made it again something that is excluding the experience of others. And this is also like, kind of like a situation that also needs to be discussed,
Yeah.
because we're also craving queer female spaces that are exclusive, right? And sometimes when some of the people in this in community transition to male, sometimes some of the women feel like it's not an exclusive female space anymore, even though they still have experiences as women. So it's something that can be open to discussion, I think. And what's important is to not exclude anyone or to make people feel na, oh, just because I transitioned, oh, I became a cisgender male, and suddenly you have now this stereotype that I am oppressive. And even though that might not be the actual experience. So I feel like we really should lean more towards being inclusive, or at least having an open conversation. So I think what happened to that group is that umalis lahat nung trans men, all the non-binaries, and actually most of the young people, because they felt like the group became transphobic, right?
Mm, yes.
And I think that time natutunan ng mga older women in that group, especially the older feminists, they learned the term TERF because they got called TERF. If for
Ooh.
those who are listening, the people who don't know the term TERF, TERF, is trans exclusionary radical feminist. I think this refers to the crop of women, cisgender women, I think, usually feminists, who exclude trans women or the trans experience or trans men in their advocacy and in their communities. So that's interesting. It's something that you don't really want to be, but actually I learned actually in hearing about that incident. Now there were actually some women there who said, I'm proud of being a turf. It's not something to be proud of,
Oh my
because they
gosh.
basically like saying na, oh, hindi, pang babae lang talaga to, so umalis kayo dyan if you're not real women, right? Again, excluding. And also if you transition to male. So it's not a good, I just want to say, it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And also you are not contributing to the health of younger generation of queer people. That's
True.
all, right?
It's a
So
good thought. Yeah. It's good to open for discussion, especially maybe, there's a clause that's it's just strictly female, right? But so it's nice. I mean, that will be a conflict for me as well. So because I don't know the rules of we did have that also in
yeah.
our group, right? But you are correct, right? Because that person had also a part of their life,
Yeah,
right?
and they might have experiences, then they can contribute with their female experience. But now are you closing the door?
It's
If
true.
you're closing
It's a
the
good thought.
door on trans men, are you closing the door on trans women? And why? They had the male experience. Does that mean they're not included? Now, in your
Mm.
discourse, something to think about when we are dealing with, I know that we like to carve out spaces for ourselves so that we can be ourselves. So it's interesting to think about what makes us uncomfortable now, and who we're excluding and who we're including. And is that the right way to go? It's an important thing to consider and discuss.
Yes, that's nice. Because here there's a softball team. It's called Not So Amazon, but they include trans men.
Mhm.
So it's a nice softball. But I'm just so busy that was my favorite part of coming here playing
Mhm.
with the community. It was really good. So I think the key thing is to be really open and accepting, really. Let's try to do our part and not add to the problem. And one of the easiest and most accessible things to do is, of course, use the proper pronouns for people when they have them by their name. That's very important. And to denote your own pronouns too in your name. So exactly, that's what I do right now because I train the new hires. So I say, "Good morning, my name is Lia. My pronouns are she and her." That's it.
Yeah.
Doesn't
And
mean
you
anything.
normalize it. 'Di ba?
Exactly.
Kasi madaming nagagalit diyan sa pronoun eh. And also they make fun of it as if it's some
Yeah.
kind of like parang arte or whatever. But it's very important to denote our pronouns when we introduce ourselves to just say, "Oh, my pronouns are she, her, they, or whatever it is," because then you normalize it and it's not weird. Also, you kind of say, "I may be male presenting, but I would like to be referred to as female." So then you open the door to other people who might not present the way they identify, or maybe they might confuse people and they want to actually set the record straight. "I want you to refer to me as this pronoun," and it's clear, it's not a big deal, right? So it's
Exactly.
interesting. So I have another story that comes to mind, someone that actually I deeply respect, confided that she has a huge problem with a they pronoun,
Oh.
as using it as singular. Had a big debate and discussion with this person who just
Woo.
insisted that I refuse to call a person they, even if they say their pronoun is they. And I had to explain how disrespectful that is and how hurtful that is, because they're already giving you the pronoun that they want to use. Whether you understand it or not, this is the pronoun that they want, and you need to use it. And my friend's only point is that it's not grammatically correct. Like, we use the word you, which is technically a singular pronoun, as to refer to a group. So we actually can easily use they for us as a one person. It's not a big deal. And I was trying to explain that here you are trying to stick with the rules of English grammar, which is not even Filipino, because Tagalog does not have gender specific pronouns. So
Exactly.
that's why. So bakit mo pinipilit? Kasi kung sinabi mo naman, siya nga siya is neither male or female. So there
Yeah.
should be an English. If the English equivalent of a non-binary, non-gender specific pronoun is ikaw, sila, or whatever, there should be an equivalent. If it's they, then it's they. But my point was, on one hand, you're saying it's grammar, it's not correct. On the other hand, people are dying because you do not want to acknowledge their gender identity, because it's so simple. They want to be referred to as they, and you do not want to use it. And now this person wants to self-harm because you're not accepting their gender identity. How can you feel that that's okay to just stick to your language rules, and then this person is gonna get hurt in the process? And my friend is like, "Well, that's not my problem. They're the ones who have the problem." And that broke my heart. That really
Yeah.
broke my heart,
And then, yeah.
because that parang it stopped there. And whenever I hear a gay person becoming transphobic, or basically refusing to adapt or understand, or even just respect pronouns, non-binary people, trans people, or whatever, it breaks my heart, because then I'm just like, don't you remember how it feels?
Exactly. It breaks my
Don't you
heart.
remember how easily you forget how hard it was to be accepted? Yung simple nga lang dati na babae ako kahit maiksi yung buhok ko, it was so hard already before. We experienced so much discrimination just for cutting our hair.
Yes.
And how hurtful that was to us. Tas ito na lang nga, sinasabi na nga sa'yo I'm already spelling it out to you. This is how you address me. This is how you refer to me. Wala na ngang confusion Ayaw mo pa rin gamitin, because why? Ayoko lang. I don't want to recognize it. So it sounds so selfish. It's very disappointing. And do not be that person, please.
Sakit eh. True. Now I remember kung yung tao na yun. he said the post was people who use they and their pronouns are are bad at math or something like that. So sabi ko, you know what? Wala na, binlock na kita kasi you're insulting people already eh. It's not about, your thoughts about it
Like
already.
whatever, bad at math or whatever, you are bad at
Exactly.
humanity. And
Exactly.
that is much worse.
Exactly. I was just like, oh my gosh, ang laki ng problema niya talaga. Yon, that was the final straw. And then, sobrang dininig. It's really just sad. Exactly. Sinabi na ng tao. And I asked them, straight people. So if usually it's the men. So I say, okay, what if I say she about you? Ah, wala akong pake. Really? As in, I wanted to
Sige.
see, right? Sige, I'll talk to you and I'll describe you as she all the time. They said, "Di, wala man akong tagang pake." I'm like, oh, come on. Diba? I mean, even men, if you tell them a different pronoun, they don't like that. And then why do
No.
you do that to other people, diba? So,
You know,
sad
right?
talaga. How they
Yeah, I know that we both have experience like in the corporate world and the workplace. It's common now to put your pronouns in your signature. Do you do that a lot now at work?
Yep, it's everywhere. My Teams, my signature, and because of the Pride Professional Network, we really have that education. We tell them, oh, you can go here, you can put your signature. We have that already. And yes, so if you go to my IG, my pronouns are there. Especially me. I really wanna be I really correct,
Mhm.
right? And but just to say, oh, I prefer to be called she. And that's it. And then you
That's
go
it.
about your business,
Tapos na.
'di ba? Tapos na.
It's not a big deal, you
Yes,
know. And
exactly.
my actually this my latest job is the first time I actually used pronouns in my email signature because actually for this job we had an email signature creator like app, and you go
Nice.
there and there's already a space for pronouns. So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna use my pronouns now because I realize also that using the correct pronouns, it denotes respect. When you normalize it, using pronouns for yourself, it normalizes the others using pronouns for themselves. And it doesn't make it weird because everybody's putting the pronoun. So actually, pag may nagpapagawa sa akin ng email signature at work, yung mga hindi marunong, I automatically put the pronouns already. Kung ayaw nila, di tanggalin nila. But it's for me, it's normal. It should be in everyone's signature, right? So
Yes. For me, it's
using
also
it.
yes. For me, it's
Go.
also a sign that this is a safe space.
Yeah.
Like, oh
Yeah.
wow, this person is using her pronouns. That means I can say maybe they want to say I'm transgender or something, right? Or
Yeah.
being
I'm
gay.
okay.
Period. Just being gay, not
Uh-huh.
even transgender or part of the gender or community. If somebody says my pronouns, okay, this person is accepting because she's using
Yeah.
the pronouns,
Yeah.
right?
And
She's aware of that,
may
right? So
mga kakilala din akong mga older lesbians who are like, I'm not gonna put an email signature. That's ridiculous. Of course, I'm she or her, but that's not the point. The point
exactly.
is to let people know that you are accessible and approachable that way, right?
Yes.
And some people actually, even if you prefer a particular gender pronoun, if you really use she and her, some people actually put they in their pronouns too because it's part of the push to normalize using they. If it's something that applies to you and you want to put they just so other people will be more comfortable using they, I think it's a good thing to do. And the more people who use pronouns, the more people ask about the correct pronouns. When you meet someone and you're not sure, you can just ask them, what's your pronoun? And then automatically, you know how they want to be seen, how they want to be referred. So hindi na siya mystery and you're not going to offend everyone. And actually, when you introduce yourself, it opens the door for the other person to introduce themselves. So wala nang confusion. So hindi ka na makakabastos ng tao because you cleared it up already, right? So,
Wow.
ang bilis ng parang ang bilis sa atin kasi it's so, our
Tsaka,
conversation is always freely flowing and so passionate that we forget again the time.
oh wow, but that there's so much doon. Yung energy na parang sa New York ano natin,
Na
episode.
parang dada lang ng dada. But yeah, unfortunately, we cannot, even though we could go on and
Yes.
on with that. Some people might not be appreciating that our episodes are as long as movies. Pwede nyo naman i-pause.
Or breakdown.
Great conversation that we had today. Again,
Yeah.
thank you so much.
So yeah, so last conclusion lang. For me, what I learned also recently is if you are corrected, don't already panic and like really get worked up on it. Parang, oh, I'm so sorry, but actually, I believe, yun ang dami nang
Yeah, and
sinasabi, na if
they
somebody
said
corrects you, yes. What?
actually, if you make a mistake in someone's misgendering someone or dead naming is a term meaning that you're using the person's old name from
That they don't want to.
that you don't want you to use, just say sorry and move on.
Yes.
Say sorry. You can ask what's your correct pronoun and use the pronoun in the future. Pero wag ka nang mag-justify masyado na no, I'm really not like that. I'm really blah, 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 blah. Like, just say,
Yeah,
I'm
don't
sorry.
fuss anymore. That's
Kasi
fine.
nakakahiya. And
Yes.
ikakahiya for the other person to na ang dami naman ngayon ini-explain. Right?
Yes, at the end, siya pa yung magko-comfort sa'yo.
Yeah. Parating ganun na parang ako pa no, it's okay. Kahit nasaktan mo ko. Blah, blah.
Diba?
Also,
So,
I think
yes.
related to that, make sure that you don't feel it's the other person's obligation to educate you. Right? Kasi meron akong nakausap na ganyan, someone really close to me said something really offensive to me and I got offended. And the response was, mabuti nga, nagkamali ako and I offended you. So now you have an opportunity to teach me the right way. It is not our obligation to educate you. It is your obligation if you care enough to educate yourself so that you are not hurtful. Again, I'm always saying I don't know everything, but I don't go around asking people to teach me. The internet has been around since the 90s.
Yes.
So please use it. All the answers are there. You have questions you can ask, but do not ask somebody to give you a tutorial or to teach you everything because that's not their obligation. Do not ask a trans person to explain their life history to you and to explain what being trans is. It's not their obligation. We all have our part. If you really want to be a good member of the gay or queer community, or you want to be a good ally, do your job, and fulfill your own obligations and take responsibility for yourself instead of making an oppressed minority be the one to cater to you. That's
Exactly.
my final word.
Yes. So this has been another episode, a good episode of
Yeah.
Salt and Pepe Podcast. I really enjoyed this Pride episode. So much to learn talaga. And so glad that you stayed. I'm sure. Please send us your comments, your thoughts. This is a really good topic. Yes. And again,
Happy
don't forget to
Pride to everybody. This
subscribe.
is our Pride Month closing episode, and there's only one more episode in our first season. So if you have any words for us, suggestions, any kind of feedback, we really appreciate it. Don't worry, we're going to be back. Just taking a summer break, but I really, really enjoyed this conversation. Very educational, and I hope you all learned a thing or two also.
Yes. Be kind, especially if you're part of the community. Don't exclude anyone. And before we go, happy birthday, Kia.
Many thanks for all the birthday greetings because this is going to come out after that na, right? So thanks so much for that, and happy Pride, and for
Happy
all
Pride.
the members and all the lesbian titas and all the older members of our gay queer community in the Philippines. Huwag naman kayong madaling makalimot.
Yun.
Madami tayong naranasan na paghihirap and challenges and struggles before when we were starting out, nung hindi pa tayo komportable, nung hindi pa legal ang gay marriage, nung nung takot na takot pa tayo, go back to your past and go back to your roots and try to remember how terrified you were and how hard it was for you, because that is how hard it is for younger people and the people who are coming out now, and they need all the help we can get. And if it's as little as using the right pronoun, using the right name, understanding being transgender, please just do it for them, because we want to be the people that we needed growing up. That's
Yes.
it.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so
Thanks, Leah, for
much.
that. Have a
Have a
good
great
one.
time.
You
Thank
too.
you, Leah. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for letting us spice up your day.
Keep on listening to Salt and Pepe Podcast.
Konting alat
Konting anghang.
and Pepe all around.
This has been Leah.
And Shakira.
See you next time.